Are you tired of seeing those 4 energy, 2 action point removal on a body cards in Union Arena that we seem to be getting every single set? Well, don't worry because One Punch Man has yet another one. But in all seriousness, in today's video, I want to take a chance to talk about some of the design changes that we're seeing with One Punch Man and other sets that are going to come to the English version at the same time as Japan that really go into more of what I'm going to call the design creep that we're going to see. And I don't want to use the term power creep because people automatically assume that it's better or stronger, which isn't always true. I don't think any of these decks are going to like dethrone Blue JJK by any means, at least in today's video, but I do want to at least highlight some of the interesting mechanics that we're going to be getting that I think really open up some exciting new ways to play Union Arena. And for me, that's exciting. I love to see some of these new things that we get to explore that, one, again, no one knows what the meta is going to be, but two, just give us new ways to interact with the game and have new ways to kind of manipulate different aspects of it that can make it fun and engaging. So for me, I think this is going to be a huge set. So in today's video, I really just wanted to take some time to dig into each one of the kind of key highlights from One Punch Man, but also the timing of this is kind of very relevant because, as I just mentioned, we are seeing more sets that are going to be coming over from Japan, primarily at the same time, and we did get a roadmap update from Gamma, which, again, huge disclaimer, this says TBD on the top. We do have to take this with a grain of salt. Nothing is officially confirmed until it's officially confirmed. But seeing Kenshin, which will be another like late UA set, and Hunter x Hunter Volume 2, which is a little bit earlier, but still adds some good support for that set. There's some exciting stuff in here. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what other like new designs and new gameplay features that we do get. Now, while none of these are going to be like a fully new mechanic like baked into the game rules, I think they are interesting enough to at least talk about. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. So up first, of course, he goes on the thumbnail. And this is really the one that I think sticks out the most that I want to talk about was King, because he does quite a few things here. And the number one thing that's probably going to stick out for a lot of people is that it cannot attack or block. It is just a body that has to sit on your front line for what he wants to be doing. And he just sits there and looks pretty. This is really important because we have seen other green strategies in Union Arena that want to have these like really top heavy payoffs of like 10, 11, 12 energy, which we'll talk about that side of it a little bit more later. But this does also have the self mill that, yes, does exist in part in purple, but this green deck in particular has a couple different ways to get even more value generated from it. And the other part that I really do want to call out is that this character generates energy even if it's on the front line, which is something that we have seen as early as the Bleach set, because these do go with the kind of high energy demand that green really wants to be leaning into. But I thought King himself was worth calling out because I think a lot of people are going to get tripped up by this card. And again, just gives us ways to really recycle and value that top end green powerhouse that we want to be playing. So full disclaimer, One Punch Man is not a series that I've fully gone through yet. I don't even remember where I left off, unfortunately. But I am going to be going back and watching some of this, this weekend and the next weekend just to try to get caught up. But I'm really excited to see how this kind of comes together. So again, King kind of breaking the traditional color pie that we've seen so far, has an extra condition on him, which means you are always giving up a extra point of life, which is going to be really, really important against the more aggressive decks. I think there's actually a really cool aggressive deck that's going to be popping out of this set as well, which we're also going to cover today. But the other one that really sticks out to me is King Engine. So the fact that you get to generate an energy, yes, it's just till the end of turn, but now we're able to, again, because you're going to want to have King on the field for the effect, he is now producing 3 energy in the front line. And in a deck that wants to go up to, 10, 11 energy, it is something that you're going to want that extra feel for. But what's really important about this as well, and yes, you do need 5 energy to play it originally, it does now give you the option to play a removal card and maybe cheat out a energy for a turn that you don't have to spend then into a character into your energy line to promote something on your next turn. So it also frees up a action point, even if it is limited, because you'll have to eventually play the character anyways on your next turn. But this opens up some really interesting sequencing that, especially if you have like 2 of them, right? You're able to then do things like double King, give something else the energy modification, and then go right into a raid for like really explosive turns. So Yes, it is a special trigger. You're going to be playing 4 of them anyways, as you know, you in UA, but really excited to see how this all comes together because I think it is going to be something that can open up some new play lines that we just haven't seen before. And again, talking about that big green payoff, the other one that I have to give a call out here to is Serious Punch. Now, the whole archetype within this one is the self-mill to reduce the cost of cards, but the big one here is that, yes, it does have additional costs, but you get to sideline something from your opponent's front line and one of their energy line. This is massive, massive disruption against a lot of decks in the format, albeit though it does come into the late game because you have to ramp up to play it plus mill a bunch of cards. And it also has no, trigger on it, so that of course is its own downside. But this does now give us an avenue to snipe cards from the energy line where previously they were safe. We did have like Toto in JJK, which allows you to move up some cards, right? But it's very limited. It's a very like special area. So I do hope that this is something else that we're going to start to see more of just more ways to interact with our opponent's board. And if we do have something that's going to interact specifically with the energy line, which again, to a point should be, a bit sacred, but being able to interact with it in a way that if you really wanted to maybe cut off a raid fodder, you now have that option in another color that's not just Toto. And honestly, I think at least from my initial impressions of this deck, this is going to be a little bit better than Toto, at least until we get the Volume 2 for JJK, which is going to be really nice. Also, confirmed as well. But I think it is something that people will be excited to play. And then lastly, just to give it the proper shout out to is Saitama himself, 15 energy, 2 action points, impact 3. That is no joke. So we might see a rise of, negate impact as it were. But the important one here to call out is that you do get to, very high cost, 2 action point. It is a removal, but this does bounce back to your hand. So you are able to, get in the 3 points of damage with impact 3. It's a 10K body, at least in our format. It's punching through everything. It is this big, fantastic payoff that you get to do. Now, you're not going to get damage 7 hardly. Well, shouldn't ever get damage 7, all things considered, but still really cool to see on the card as well. And then when it goes back to your hand, you're also giving up another point of life in this case, which again, keep in mind, you're probably already playing King to set this up. So that's now 2 spots you have open. So yes, this does leave itself very vulnerable to more of like the aggressive play styles, but I do like seeing this true late game, heavy punching, self-mill, finding the right pieces strategy that Green really didn't have. Green has always been very linear, very relying on getting the energy up to a certain number, where this now does have kind of a separate mechanic to it. So really excited to see how this plays out overall, and I think One Punch Man is going to be an exciting set. Getting into red, this is another one that we really haven't seen yet, at least for the Japanese formats that I followed and the decks that have come out. I haven't really seen any red deck that wants to do the kind of the same thing, but more of getting to my sideline matters, which, yes, we've previously only seen really in purple in a significant way, and now we have something with red that there are going to be a bunch of either self-mill cards or other ways that you want to fill up your trash or sideline to then pay for a cost to move it to the outside area. And that could be either drawing cards, that could be looking for ways to increase your BP by reducing your life. This is really something that reminds me a lot more of, say, Magic the Gathering, which allows you to, go into the Hellbent one is where you have no hand. And that's more in green. That's Puri Puri Prisoner, I believe is the name of the card for that one. For that specific example, but with Speed O Sound, we do see the cards play off here wonderfully together, and also being able to just swap something from your energy line, which is then also going to be a 4K. This now gives you ways to set up multiple attacks, which, yes, is very red coded, but we do have cards that allow us to, get an additional payoff, do even more stuff, as long as you manage your life and your sideline and your outside area correctly. So this is definitely one that's going to require you to do quite a bit of setup, to think ahead on your turns and what is going to be the best way to draw the extra cards or find other ways to maybe block a little bit early so that you can go into the Speed of Sound on your next turn, right? This is going to require a little bit more kind of careful planning turn over turn compared to some other red decks that we've seen in the game so far. And then the other one that I really have to give a shout out to is Boros, because it is aggressive. It's a double energy. You do get to draw the cards. I mean, this is nuts. This is now something that, and it's an entire archetype in red as well, that says, hey, our life total, you and me, we got to have 2 life left. That's kind of the ideal situation, right? So this automatically kind of leans itself into a more aggressive strategy where you should hopefully be ahead as the red deck. And this is a way to kind of chip away at your own life to reach that threshold of having that 4 or less life total combined between you. So this is another really cool one where we just really haven't seen a lot of self-damaging for some type of benefit. And then, of course, the raid here also getting an additional benefit of, 6 energy in red's kind of insane, but it does go down to 4. It is going to get impact, and it allows you to just get more of that last minute push that you really need by getting the extra Boros here as well. So, again, getting to add the life, then draw 2 cards. So, really 3 cards in Union Arena is a huge deal to pick up. But, of course, it is going to come with the downside that if you're in maybe like an aggressive matchup and it is kind of a neck and neck race in terms of who's going to get to those last couple cards, this can also be a penalty. But again, I really do like more of the our life matters. We have more control over maybe how we want to manipulate it. And I really do hope this is something that we see more of, maybe not exactly of the 4 life or less, because I do think that's a little bit more limiting. But this Boros card in particular, I think would be absolutely huge for seeing kind of more of an evolution of red, which, to be fair, had a really rough start in Union Arena. I do think this is an absolutely insane card to get, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of this in the future. Event cards are also changing in a pretty big way in terms of just new stuff that we're getting. So with the Garu special, it actually has the effect that says, sorry, you can't use your special on my guy. It's just going to go to your hand. So this guarantees you a point of damage, or they have to block, depending on what the board state looks like, where One Punch, of course, a very iconic card that we're going to have here, just says, well, take a damage, right? Which is crazy because this is just something that's going to happen before combat, and it is a little bit limiting, to be fair. However, it still has the impact on the other side. So we are starting to see a little bit more of an expansion with the event cards themselves, which, yes, for specials, 99 times out of 100, you're always just going to be running whatever your main character is that you care about in your deck. So Fists of Flowing Water, Crushing Rock is always going to go in that very specific deck. Of course, you do get the action point reduction too, so it is still a 5 energy, 1 action point as long as you have the card removal for 5k, but it is something that gets a little bit additive of effect, even if it's a little limited, but I think will line up for some very interesting plays of, how do I have to use the specials now on my turn to kind of counter? Do I need to just be a little bit more aggressive with my removal to counter all of their Garus that they might have so they can't line up that last point of damage? So 2 cards that I'm very excited here for as well, just because we are starting to see really a lot more out of the event cards, because they have been in a little bit of a lacking space where, especially outside of, your 4 final triggers, your 4 special triggers, you're extremely limited in the deck space, and we haven't really had an event cards matter style of deck yet, but that, of course, is going to be changing with Terrible Tornado and Hellish Blizzard. And this is probably the one that I am most excited about, because now this really gets into different ways to play the game, and something that is going to have a very significant, or should have a very significant impact on deck building choices. The fact that Terrible Tornado allows you to cheat an action point for an event is pretty insane. It is going to be a 4K with impact as well, so it's closing out games. And then, of course, Hellish Blizzard's nice because when played, you get to draw some cards as well, which is really important in these yellow style of decks that are going to be having less units, right, that you're playing to the front line. So you do need the additional cards to dig a little bit deeper. You can't be stuck with a hand full of event cards, but at the same time, you need those event cards because these characters care about those very specific things. And again, with the ability to also sideline too, cards from your hand, right? You are able to get an event card, not a special, but you could get a final to extend your turn when you need to, or all characters are going to get plus 8,000. Now, in that specific instance, I am really just looking at this card for 1, the name, which is going to be important, and 2, for the ability to draw extra cards in a event-heavy style of deck because we have other ways that we can boost this if we really need to. But it really is Terrible Tornado that is going to kind of take the spotlight for this. And then last but not least, what are the events that we kind of care about, right? It's going to be Let's Go. As I had just mentioned, it is going to be the Hellish Blizzard card that we care about, and I merely immobilize them. There's a couple other, of course, you could do, and the one punch that we mentioned up front, because that is just a flat ping, as you will, for damage. But what's really important about these two cards in particular is that they both have an active trigger, and that is extremely important, not only to have more favorable triggers in your deck, but when you're also very low on the amount of characters you can kind of play to your front line and that are sticky enough for those first couple turns, getting an extra block with off an active trigger is going to be huge for helping this deck stabilize. So again, we're going to have new ways to generate energy in our front line and get extra removal. We have new things to look forward to with life manipulation and how that's going to play out. And also, at least in the US, finally, the first event cards matter style of deck. So I'm really excited. Again, I don't want to call it power creep, but it's more of just like design creep or scope creep that we're going to be seeing with these future sets, which does beg the question, what are we going to see with some of those other later sets that we're getting this year, like Full Metal Alchemist? But either way, I'm really excited because it's no longer just, hey, here's my generic raid impact guy, right? There's other deck building choices that we can make that are going to open up some other avenues, which is really, really exciting. And also, if we think about just One Punch Man as a set in its entirety, we have a low to the ground red aggressive deck. We have this like mid-range yellow deck that wants to loop some events and get some extra value that way. And then we have at the very top end, green goes ham and just punches you and kills you in 2 turns, right? So we have actually a really nice variety itself in One Punch Man from different stages of the game that these decks want to be kind of excelling at. So that also gives me a lot of hope for future set design and what we might see again from Full Metal Alchemist just being the most relevant one otherwise coming up, because I know a ton of people are excited for that set. That gets me excited for Union Arena. So that is our video for today. Let me know which new archetype or just deck in general that you're excited for the most in One Punch Man. And of course, we will have more content coming out shortly with the gameplay and of course the unboxing and all that good stuff for One Punch Man. I tried to get more gameplay out recently, but my video crashed, and I've been trying to work through new OBS issues, as it were. So bear with me, a lot more to come on that here in the near future. But until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.